There is something living inside you right now that should not be there. It has no weight you can measure, no shape you can hold, yet it bends your spine and clouds every room you walk into. It is the thing you refuse to release, the person, the outcome, the version of your life that never came to be. And it is quietly consuming you from the inside out. You have carried this thing so long that you no longer notice the carrying. It has become part of your posture, part of the way you speak, part of the silence you keep at the end of every day. The mind adapts to its burdens. It normalizes the weight and calls the numbness strength. But numbness is not strength. It is just a slower kind of collapse. The Stoics were not philosophers of detachment in the cold, indifferent sense. They did not say, feel nothing, want nothing, become stone. What they said was far more demanding: feel everything, and then choose what you will carry forward. That choice, made deliberately and without self-deception, is the beginning of a free life. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire for nearly 2 decades while burying friends, watching his children die, and enduring betrayals from men he trusted with his life. He did not escape suffering. He walked through it every single day. And he wrote, in private, to remind himself of one relentless truth: you do not control what happens to you, only what you do with it. So before we go any further, understand this. Letting go is not giving up. It is not indifference. It is not the surrender of someone who has stopped caring. Letting go is the deliberate act of a disciplined mind, the recognition that your grip on certain things is not protecting you. It is the thing that is breaking you. Think of the last person you could not stop thinking about after they left. The conversation you replayed at 3 a.m, editing your words, rewriting the ending. The mind does this not because it is weak, but because it was built to solve problems. And it cannot accept that some problems have no solution. Some doors close and do not reopen. Epictetus, who was born a slave and had every reason to be consumed by resentment, identified the single most important division in all of human experience: what is up to us and what is not. Other people's choices not up to us. The past not up to us. Outcomes we have already set in motion not up to us. Your judgment, your response, your inner posture entirely up to you. This is not a comforting idea at first. It is, in fact, a devastating one. Because the moment you truly accept it, you lose the ability to blame. You lose the luxury of waiting for someone else to fix what is broken inside you. The story of your suffering stops being something that was done to you and becomes something you are choosing, moment by moment, to continue. There is a moment in every person's life, sometimes many such moments, when they are standing at the edge of a choice they cannot see clearly. One path is to keep holding, keep rehearsing the wound, keep insisting that the world owes you a different outcome. The other path is to open your hands and walk forward into something that feels, at first, terrifyingly empty. That emptiness is not loss. That emptiness is space. And the Stoics understood that the mind, like a closed fist, can hold nothing new until it first releases what it is gripping. The question is not whether you are strong enough to hold on. The question is whether you are brave enough to let go. Let us talk about people first, because that is where most of us bleed. There is someone in your life, or perhaps no longer in your life, whose absence has become a presence. They are gone in the physical sense, but they occupy your thoughts, your comparisons, your quiet moments of self-assessment. You measure yourself against what they thought of you. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the people who had wronged him not to expose them, but to remind himself of something essential. He wrote that people are made to work together, the way hands and feet and eyelids are made to work together. When one person harms another, they are acting against their own nature. They are the ones diminished by it, not you. This is not easy to feel when the wound is fresh. When someone you love chose to leave, or chose someone else, or simply stopped seeing you the way you needed to be seen, logic does not soften that. But the Stoic practice is not to suppress the pain. It is to refuse to let the pain become your identity. There is a difference between being hurt and building a home in the hurt. When you hold on to a person who is gone, what are you actually holding on to? You are holding on to a story, a version of reality where things turned out differently, a future that existed only in your imagination, and even then, only as a possibility. You are grieving something that never fully existed. And there is mercy in that realization, if you can reach it. The Stoics practiced a discipline called the view from above, imagining yourself rising out of your own life, looking down at the vast sweep of time and human movement, seeing your particular grief as one small thread in an incomprehensibly large tapestry. Not to make your pain feel meaningless, but to make it feel proportionate, to loosen its grip on the whole of who you are. There is a kind of person who has been hurt so many times that they have made a philosophy out of their wounds. Every new relationship is read through the lens of the old betrayal. Every offer of kindness is suspected of concealing a trap. They call this wisdom, but it is not wisdom. It is a prison built from the past, and they have swallowed the key. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality, that the mind, left unchecked, will construct elaborate dungeons from ordinary disappointments. The practice he returned to again and again was this: examine what you are actually feeling, separate the raw event from the story you have layered over it, and ask what remains when the story is stripped away. What usually remains, when you are honest, is something smaller and simpler than the elaborate architecture of your resentment. A moment of rejection, a choice that was not yours to make, a love that was real but was not enough to survive. These things happen. They are finished. The suffering that continues beyond them is entirely constructed in the present tense. Now let us turn to outcomes, because this is where ambition and suffering meet. You worked for something. You sacrificed for it. You bent your life around a particular vision of how things would unfold. And then they did not unfold that way. And now you are standing in the wreckage of an expectation, trying to understand where you went wrong. Here is the Stoic answer, and it will sting before it frees you. The outcome was never yours to own. What was yours was the effort, the intention, the quality of your attention in the work itself. The result belongs to forces beyond you: timing, other people's choices, the invisible machinery of circumstance. You were never promised the harvest. You were only ever given the soil and the seeds. This does not mean effort is meaningless. Quite the opposite. When you release your attachment to the outcome, something remarkable happens. You become capable of doing the work more purely. You act because it is right to act, not because you need the world to confirm your worth by rewarding you. The Stoics called this acting in accordance with virtue, doing the good thing regardless of what comes back to you. Think of every great undertaking in your life. Not the outcomes, the moments inside the work itself. The hours when you are fully present in the doing of something difficult, when time moved differently, when you forgot to check whether anyone was watching. That was not practice for the real thing. That was the real thing. The result that came after was always secondary. But what about the outcomes that still sting? The promotions that went to someone else. The work that was overlooked. The vision you gave years of your life to that collapsed quietly, without ceremony. How do you release those without falling into passive acceptance of a life smaller than you imagined? The answer is in the distinction Marcus Aurelius drew between his will and the world's response to his will. He commanded armies he could not fully control. He made decisions whose consequences outlived him. He wrote in his private journal, not for publication, not for legacy, simply to train his own mind to act well and release the rest. The discipline was not passivity. It was a refusal to be enslaved by results. You can want something with your whole being, pursue it with everything you have, and still release your need for it to arrive on your term. These two things are not contradictions. They are the twin pillars of a life lived without the torture of perpetual disappointment. Desire fully. Attach loosely. Work completely. Receive whatever comes with open hands. Now we come to the hardest thing. Harder than releasing people. Harder than releasing outcomes. The past. That fixed, immovable country you keep visiting, the place where every version of your regret lives, where every moment you wish you could unsay or undo waits for you in perfect, permanent detail. You know the address. You return there often. The past is the one thing that truly cannot be changed, not by will, not by grief, not by the most sophisticated philosophical discipline ever devised. It is done. It is sealed. It exists in a dimension that no living force can reach. And yet the mind treats it as a wound that needs constant attention, picking at it, returning to it, convinced that if it examines it thoroughly enough, something will shift. Marcus Aurelius wrote that time is a river of vanishing moments, that nothing holds still, that the self who made the mistake you are torturing yourself with is not the self standing here now. That person is as gone as any historical figure. You have inherited their consequences, but you are not obligated to inherit their guilt in perpetuity. At some point, the debt must be acknowledged and then put down. There is a difference between learning from the past and being imprisoned by it. Learning requires you to look at the event clearly, extract what it teaches, and then turn away from it toward the present moment where your actual life is happening. Imprisonment is the refusal to turn away the insistence that the past must be fully understood, fully justified, or fully punished before you are allowed to move. Who gave you the rule that you must fully understand every painful thing before you are permitted to release it? That rule was not handed down by wisdom. It was invented by the part of you that is afraid of moving forward, because moving forward means accepting that the past cannot be undone, and acceptance feels, at first, like defeat. But here's what acceptance actually is. It is not the statement that what happened was acceptable. It is not forgiveness in the sense of erasing what was done. It is the simple, devastating acknowledgement that it happened, that it is real, that it is finished, and that your present life is not obligated to be defined by it. Acceptance is not the end of the story. It is the first line of a new one. We are now at the practical heart of this. Because philosophy without practice is just vocabulary. The Stoics were relentlessly practical. They were not interested in beautiful ideas that could not be lived. So here's what the practice of release actually looks like when you bring it down from abstraction into the texture of a single day. Begin in the morning, before the day fills with noise. Sit with the thing you are carrying. Do not avoid it. Do not perform peace at it. Look directly at it. Ask, is this mine to resolve? Is this within my power today? If the answer is yes, then act. If the answer is no, then the only remaining question is, will I carry this or will I put it down? That is the full scope of your choice. When the thought of the person returns, and it will return, do not fight it. Fighting a thought is the surest way to give it power. Instead, observe it. Name it without judgment. This is a thought about someone who is no longer here. This thought is not the person. This thought is not the past. This thought is happening now in my mind, and I can watch it pass the way a cloud passes without me having to become the weather. When you are facing an outcome, you cannot control a decision being made without you, a result still pending, a future still forming practice, what the Stoics called reserve clause thinking. You pursue the goal fully, but with the internal addendum, and if this does not come to pass, that too is acceptable. Not as resignation, as the armoring of your peace against the volatility of a world you do not fully govern. And when the past rises up, as it will, in the quiet hours, in the spaces between distraction, try this practice. Write it down. Not to analyze it endlessly, but to externalize it, to take it out of the closed system of your skull and place it somewhere outside you. Then ask, what did this teach me that I am grateful to know? And then close the page. That is the ritual of release. These practices will not work perfectly the first time, or the 10th time. The mind is not a switch. It is a river, and you cannot stop a river by standing in it and demanding it hold still. You redirect it, gradually, through repeated practice, through the patient construction of new channels. The Stoics practiced daily, not because they were broken, but because they understood that the mind requires constant tending. There will be moments when you feel you have released something and then you find it back in your hands. This is not failure. This is the nature of the work. Marcus Aurelius wrote the same lessons to himself repeatedly across the meditations, not because he forgot, but because the practice required renewal. You do not master release once. You practice it each time the tide brings something back. Now let us speak about what you are afraid the release will cost you. Because underneath every refusal to let go is a fear. And the most common fear is this: if I stop grieving this person, it means they did not matter. If I stop being angry about this outcome, it means the injustice was acceptable. If I forgive myself for the past, it means what I did was fine. None of that is true. The depth of your grief is not proof of the depth of your love. The intensity of your anger is not evidence of justice. The persistence of your guilt is not a substitute for genuine change. You can love someone fully and release them. You can acknowledge an injustice and refuse to let it own your life. You can learn from your mistakes without living inside them. The Stoics understood that memory and release are not enemies. You can hold the memory of something while releasing your attachment to its power over you. The event remains in your history. The person remains in your story. The failure remains in your record. But the poison, the daily re-injury, the reopening of the wound, the refusal to let the scar form, that is what you are being asked to release. There is a version of you on the other side of this release. Not a harder version, not a colder version, not a version that has traded warmth for armor. A lighter version. A version that moves through rooms without the invisible weight. A version that can receive new love, new work, new possibility without immediately comparing it to what was lost. That version is not waiting for a different life. It is waiting for you to put something down. We are approaching the end of this, and I want to say something that does not get said enough in conversations about Stoic philosophy. This is hard. Not conceptually hard, the ideas are simple. Emotionally hard. Existentially hard. Releasing a person you loved is one of the most difficult things a human being can do. Releasing the life you planned is a kind of grief that does not have a name. Releasing your past self requires a courage that is not celebrated anywhere. Marcus Aurelius did not write from a position of easy wisdom. He wrote from the middle of a life that was constantly asking more of him than he felt capable of giving. He was not serene by nature. He was disciplined by practice. And the discipline he returned to, most often the one woven through nearly every page of the Meditations, was the practice of accepting what is, releasing what was, and acting well in what remains. So here, near the end, is the practice distilled to its most essential form. Every morning, name the thing you are carrying. Every evening, ask whether carrying it served you or cost you. And at the threshold of sleep, practice the small death that every night offers the release of the day, with all its unresolved tensions, into the dark. Not because tomorrow will fix it, but because you deserve one night of not being its prisoner. The river does not mourn the banks, it has already passed. The fire does not grieve the wood, it has already consumed. The night does not apologize for the day it has replaced. Nature releases constantly, without drama, without ceremony, without the elaborate psychological machinery that human beings bring to the act of letting go. You are part of nature. You are allowed to move like it. You have been holding on because holding on felt like loyalty, like love, like the proper weight of a serious person who takes things seriously. But Marcus Aurelius, who took everything seriously, who carried the weight of an empire on a body that was failing him, wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The very act of release is not the abandonment of your seriousness. It is the fullest expression of it. If this reached something in you today, if some part of what was said here named a weight you have been carrying without knowing what to call it, then stay with that. Do not rush past it into the next distraction. Sit with the discomfort of recognition. That discomfort is not a problem. It is the first sensation of something beginning to loosen. That is the work beginning. That is the opening of the hand. There is more here, more conversations about the Stoic art of living, more of Marcus Aurelius, more of the hard and precise work of building a mind that does not break under the weight of being human. If this is the kind of thing that matters to you, then stay close. Subscribe and come back. Not because you need to be told what to think, but because some paths are easier to walk when you do not walk them alone.